Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm here, sir. Yes. Sir, the topic itself is a highly interesting and very relevant topic. I would say that the the structure of the topic, I mean, what is given to me is about FCRA, PMLA, and Income Tax Act, and the legal measures to ensure their accountability of the NGOs. Now, if we're looking at the whole context of civil society, the concept of civil society that we see, I think we also have a very glorious tradition of understanding this aspect very clearly. I am referring to the mentions that are made by the Chanakya and his Arthashastra about varieties of spice. In fact, he would brilliantly conceptualize this whole civil society concept as Janapada and how a king can monitor his Janapada and also monitor the Janapadas of his enemies using this series of spice. Now, if you look at the categories of spice, you would very interestingly observe a different type of spice like, a deceitful disciple, Kapati Kachatra, a recluse, a householder, a merchant, an ascetic practicing austerities, a classmate, a firebrand, a poisoner, and a mendicant woman. So the concept of using these type of roles to infiltrate into an enemy Janapada and create some sort of a trouble or a dissent or exploit and create vulnerability is something that has been seen and observed and documented very clearly by our ancestors through the brilliant books of, what is surviving currently is Arthashastra. I'm sure Arthashastra is also a representative of the long-standing tradition, which is documented only by. I would say that if you look at the influence operations that are being currently run across the world through use of non-profit organizations and non-governmental organizations, I would say that the current legal system that we have in India is the best that we can find in the world. But that being said, I would also beg to argue with the esteemed panelists and also with the listeners that this is a national security problem. And our current approach by using the Income Tax Act or the PMLA or the FCRA is largely trying to contain the scope of this. And I think we require a comprehensive national security legislation, which would actually handle this challenge in a much more comprehensive way. Now, if you look at the Income Tax Act or the PMLA Act, they are both after the observation and commitment of the offences. Their role starts once an offence is committed. So that would create some sort of a delay or a lag in response. On the other hand, FCRA's focus is largely to keenly observe the activities of the NGOs. Now, if you look at the history of the violations that we have been observing in the implementation of the FCRA, you can clearly see that receipts of foreign contribution without registration or prior permission under FCRA happens constantly. Even today, most of the money comes to the bank, and the bank dispenses it. If the operator or if the company which is receiving the foreign funds can manage a bank personnel, it is very difficult for us to notice today. Before them, and it takes a lot of time to actually get out the money and then utilize the money for any operation that they would like to do. And second thing, most of the people don't maintain exclusive accounts per foreign contribution, and most of the NGOs which operate under the FCRA lose their registration largely because they do not file mandatory annual returns. So they can be, in a way considered as very similar to some sort of shell corporations and others. And the agencies, the NGOs themselves get taken over, or the bank account details, other details get changed. So these are the type of observations that the government of India has made over the implementation of FCRA and the loopholes in the implementation of FCRA over the last decade. So the approach that we currently seem to have in legally speaking to ensure the accountability of NGOs is to monitor them very closely using the FCRA. And I really don't think we still have a very foolproof system to ensure that you monitor the activities of the NGOs. And coming to its second part, once you find some anomalies in the FCRA, you move to the Income Tax Act and the PMLA Act to penalize them or to deprive them of their resources. I would still say this is not a proactive method in managing a very important gap in our national security thinking, which is basically non-profit organizations, which have been observed as a great vehicle for influence operations across the world. So this is slightly reactive, and I believe that a time has come where we should take a more proactive view. And I know that FCRA is again a reasonably mature act. It has been amended 2-3 times. And I think it has had a very good impact on the reduction of influx of unwanted foreign capital into India to do most of the influence operations. It has been very successful. But I still believe the the right way to handle and ensure accountability is to build a national security legislation, which nowadays can be piloted by the National Security Council Secretariat itself. So that would be a greater alternative. And the rest of the causes, I think we can discuss over a period of queries. But I would also like to highlight one or two important aspects that we see. So these non-governmental organizations have been historically observed to be used, apart from the genuine cases, non-genuine cases I'm talking about, money laundering, terror financing, and also for running spy rings, and also for managing and funding political groups in India and the other dissident groups in India, which have an agenda that is convenient to many of the Western powers or the Eastern powers, whoever it is, any hostile powers. And we have also recently seen how the Chinese information operations have been unraveled in India. That also again happens through this. So I'm saying we can also create a better legal framework to enforce accountability by focusing on non-governmental organizations and their interactions, especially with media. Any expenditure that is spent on media, any expenditure that is spent on digital platforms, any expenditure that is spent on dealing with other political institutions or persons with political exposure, a special observation on that would again, remove the unwanted NGOs from operating within the country with the help of foreign countries, with the help of foreign agencies. On the other hand, this regulation would not affect the genuine NGOs which are working towards the causes of improvement and filling the gaps or running the last mile connectivity for the government. So that would be a couple of initial thoughts with which I thought we will have the conversation going. So if there are any specific questions, I think the chair can direct me to talk. So over to you, sir.